Okay, Spain. Yeah, so when I left France, it was cool. It was what was it called? The southern France was pretty because I was up on some road and I looked down and I saw the ocean and these cliffs way below me and there's flowers and they kept it really well. It's like Northern California. It's really beautiful there. And I saw the beaches down there. It was really beautiful. And then I descended into Spain. And when I went into Spain, I kind of felt like I was going into like more of a second world country because it was just like rubble scattered everywhere and like they didn't really they didn't really maintain their infrastructure as much as in France. And but there was just like when I crossed over any other border the whole time I was in Europe, there was nothing, no stamping, no bars to go through, nothing. It was just like crossing any old other road. And then the first thing I did when I went to Spain was I tried to get a Spanish English dictionary. So I think I bought one of those, and I rode up the hill and I saw there was like I saw some English kids bike touring. So I stopped. When I caught up to them going up some hill, I kind of started talking to them and I rode alongside them for the rest of the day. And then we slept at a cemetery. They were doing the camping at cemetery thing because you can get water at cemeteries. And so that was cool. I camped out with them one night. And then the next morning I took off and rode. And I think that's when I went over the Pyrenees. I went over like a bunch of switchbacks up a hill, which is cool. It was like the first climbing I'd done the whole time I was in Europe. And then I went down a really steep hill, like really far actually, into Pamplona, where they do the bull run. And that seemed like a desert to me. It was kind of Spain was different landscape than France. France was like trees and fields, but like Spain, Pamplona was just like desert. It was like totally. It was like the Southwest. You can see red earth everywhere, but I looked up and I noticed there's lots of windmills with wind power on a ridge, like more than I'd ever seen, and I was impressed with that. And so I rode. I rode like south east, directly towards Madrid in Spain, and I went up another pass. And one thing I noticed about Spain is that Spain seemed totally deserted to me. Maybe because they do the siesta in the middle of the day or something, but I was like riding up a pass and there would be like a car drive by like every half hour. I was like, nobody was there. And I went over some big pass and came down. I saw like some old bridge that was like 1,000 years old, and then I went across and I noticed I went through some town that had like a castle on the top of the hill. It was like deserted, and I saw a bunch of those castles. It was really cool. And I did a tour of a castle in France too, and I did a tour of a castle in England also, in Carlsbad Castle. But there was lots in Spain. We don't have castles, old castles on tops of hills in America, so it was cool. And then I rode into Madrid, and Madrid seemed like it was totally like in a desert, like no trees, just totally flat. And by then I was riding a lot, like 140 miles a day. I was riding really strong. And I went into Madrid, and it seemed like that was like the worst traffic I'd ever seen in my life. Riding on a highway, everybody bumper to bumper, and I'm riding my bike through, like, oh my God, I am so glad I'm not in a car. And I went into Madrid, and it was like the most construction I've ever seen ever going on. There was cranes everywhere in that town, in that city. And they had some really crazy architecture too. Spanish have some pretty wild imaginations with the architecture. They have like apartment buildings that were like have like that are like wavy and bending and everything. Like really like what's that guy Go Van? I can't remember his name. But yeah, really freaky architecture. And I went in and I was like, okay, this is a big city. Maybe I should go to like a youth hostel. So I asked these Spaniards, like, where's a youth hostel? Where can I stay? Really cheap youth hostel. And they're like, iglesia. And I was like, what's iglesia? I didn't even know any Spanish. And I looked in my like dictionary and said like church. I guess it's like okay to sleep in a church or something for free there. And anyways, I found out where a youth hostel was. It was like downtown. There's like some fountains and there's some like lake. And I went over in some youth hostel and slept there one night. And got up next morning and had a breakfast. And then I rode towards the east. The next day I saw like all these like black prostitutes on the side of the road, and I don't know, I kind of had the impression that Spain was a little bit seedier than France and England. But so then I left and I passed by the zoo, and then I went outside of Madrid, and I continued towards the east, towards Portugal. And yeah, I continued to sleep in the bushes there, and then I remember when I crossed into Portugal, same thing, just crossing over, and there was some border town, and then I felt like Portugal was really seedy because I like did a lot of hanging out on this and like camping on the side of the road and stuff, and I remember seeing like used condoms everywhere and trash, looking on the side of the road and just seeing trash, just piles of trash, like people would just dump their trash there instead of taking it to the trash place. And yeah, they didn't really take care of themselves very well. And it's kind of, I saw lots of like ghetto type places, like, you know, narrow roads and small dilapidated like houses. And then they'd have like these lights hanging from the center of the road. It looked like they'd been there since World War II. But Portugal itself, the town, the landscape was really pretty because it was really rocky and kind of hilly and not many trees. And I went through some town, and like lots of towns, and they'd be totally white. They really love painting stuff white in Portugal. All these like white buildings, and it was really peaceful. I thought it was really cool. In some little town in Portugal, on some cobblestone road, really narrow, and you go into the town, into the store, and all like the buildings seem to be like connected. And then they'd have like right next to the town, they'd have this cute little cemetery surrounded by a white painted wall, and all these ladies dressed like Muslims, like they'd have like the headdresses on and these long white robes and black robes. It was kind of interesting. I don't know. Maybe that's how the Catholics dress there, but I was like, wow, this is like these Muslims. But it was pretty because the roads were really narrow and not a whole lot of traffic on them. And it was fun to ride on. Not many trees, lots of cactuses. And it was cheaper too. I rode up into some town. It was like right on the top of a hill. It was pretty. And I got a beer for like $3. And it was cool. And then I'd ride down, and there'd be lots of groves, tree groves, that I would just get on my bike and walk it like 100 meters in, and then just place my bike next to a tree, just lock it to itself and sleep under some tree. Which was nice because, you know, like in England and France and stuff, I'd have to be like inside of a bush, or, you know, like crawl in somewhere, or be hidden. In England, I actually slept in the middle of a town, like in some high school, next to some high school like track behind a bush. I think that was Carlsbad, actually. That was called where that castle was. But so then I rode down. I saw lots of tree groves, and it was pretty. I saw one castle right on the top of a hill, like built on the edge of a cliff. That was pretty. And then I crossed back into Spain and rode back through Spain. And I remember they had ensalada, and that sounds like enchilada, and I wanted to have an enchiladas, but I'd get it and it'd be like a salad. I guess ensalada meant salad. But the food was pretty good there in Spain. And then so I rode directly to Gibraltar, and I camped out one night. And the last night I camped out in Spain, it rained all night long, and I got totally wet, and it kind of sucked. And didn't really sleep very well, and I got up the next morning, and I saw Gibraltar off in the distance and rode towards Gibraltar. And when I got to Gibraltar, I actually had to show my passport for the first time to get stamped into Gibraltar. To go in there, and I was really excited to go to Gibraltar because I knew that they spoke English there, and I was like going back into England, and so that was definitely exciting. So I guess that's the next video.